Hey guys, welcome by this very special episode of The DOORhof is Always Open. We're in Switzerland at Elinchrom, and I'm going to show you around their research and development, their assembly, and of course we're doing some interviews with the guys from Elinchrom. So enjoy this episode of The DOORhof is Always Open.
So this one is for the Quadra. It's the same like a Quadra, but where you have an accessibility on every board. And in the long of production, we put in the side all the boards that we have a problem with the panel, for example. And after we can put it here and check, and we can repair all the board. And we crush nothing.
Because the Quadra normally is too small and you can't access all the...
Yes, and on all, this one also the same. This one you have some access, but there you don't have access. And this one, he has also his own simulator, is here. And you have an accessibility on every board.
Hey Dieter, welcome to The DOORhof is Always Open.
Hello, hi, Frank.
So we're here at Elinchrom head offices in Switzerland. So, and for the people who don't know you, what is your function at Elinchrom?
Okay, I am the head engineer from Elinchrom. My name is Dieter Rauch and I'm working for Elinchrom since 2001. And yes, I'm responsible for the complete R&D department.
Should it be too much to say that you're actually the most important person in Elinchrom?
No, for sure not. Perhaps from the
He's
development.
so incredibly modest.
No, for sure not. We are a very good team, and I think the relationship between us completely is very well, and this is why in the past we had this very good success, and I hope we will continue like this. And we have some key persons inside of the company for sure, but at the end the biggest person behind our company is our boss, Malcolm Whittle.
Yeah, of course.
He drives everything very well. He's like the grandfather of the complete family. So this is the thing.
Now, you are head engineering, so research and development. Now, for people who think about it, they see a nutty professor with exploding hair, with goggles on.
Yeah.
What's your normal working day? Are you constantly inventing stuff, or?
Yes, so like developers do. So starting with ideas coming from me, coming from agents, coming from customers, yes, and we collect all these ideas. I try to bring it in real, to make it more, to work out what is really possible, what is really only ideas, and then to find a good solution for the customer and an affordable solution for sure as well. And then the development machinery is starting. So this means the electronic design is developed, the housing, the look, the design. It goes up to creating the schematics, making the mechanical housing designs, making the tests, making test equipment, and bringing all together at the end to a good working unit.
Now, if you look at some companies, I know there are some companies who don't do anything. They buy something, they brand it. If you look at the Elinchrom range of products, how many products are really designed from, let's say from 5% to 100% in-house with Elinchrom?
Okay, here we have to make a differentiation between which kind of products. So this means all flash units, and really the electronic flash equipment is made 100% by Elinchrom. And because to have this kind of good working flash units, and especially because we are not a small manufacturer, a big manufacturer, we want to have our own design, our own units, our complete control over everything. And light formers as well. We create all our own light formers. And stands, for example, we don't touch. This manufacturing, there's a lot of manufacturers worldwide
who make great stands.
Exactly, great stands. And okay, we make our own stands with the Elinchrom logo as well, but it's not really designed from us. It's professional stand manufacturers, for example. A lot of other things, I would say, to make really the differentiation. How many percent, come back to your question, percent we have, it's really difficult for me to say, but from electronic 100% or 99, it's up for sure. You buy sometimes so small electronic modules inside, but the complete electronic is made 100%, the units 100%. As I said, so it's difficult to say what is really, but I would say up to 90%.
I talked with Chris about it, like the deflector set, which is unique for Elinchrom, which creates so many different looks from only one softbox or only one beauty dish.
Yes, look, all our reflector system, for example, has never changed before. So since from the very first beginning, the reflectors work on the very old unit, also brand new units. The only difference is the Ranger Quadra to make something very small. This is a new, small, easy handle system, but this was a target, and with the existing Elinchrom's reflector attachment, it is for the high end, for the very huge reflectors to have a good mounting fixing. And for Ranger Quadra, this we changed only to get more compact.
Yeah, but you have a converter for it to use the old Elinchrom system.
Yeah,
so
for
that's
sure.
Fitting also.
Yeah.
Now, you designed a lot of stuff. I think when you look in your room, you will have, I designed this. The list goes on and on, because you actually, until recently, you were the only guy inventing the stuff here. Now you have a whole team, right?
Yes, I have a very good team at the moment. Coming back, it was Roger Durand, who was very long the development chief at Elinchrom. He's now retired since some years. And then I came to Elinchrom to Switzerland. And this time I developed all the things, but I started in 2001, as mentioned before. And with this, it was very nice to work with Roger Durand together at this time. I think it was 5-6 years together. And I brought in a lot of new ideas. Okay, this is normal if you are a young engineer or a younger engineer and have the experience of an elder one. This is the best configuration you can have for development. And now we expanded our team to get really the newest looks, the newest features, whatever.
Oh, we can't talk about it yet.
No.
Now for the future, and we won't give away too much, but one of the most asked questions, will the Ranger ever be outfitted with a lithium-ion battery? And my answer is, it wouldn't make sense if it wouldn't.
Exactly.
But can you talk a little bit about that in time framing, or is that still a big question mark?
It's still a question mark because the priorities change from time to time. I have to say, we work on this always. Ideas are collected every day. And the only thing is at the end, the decision what we really do next. We do a lot of things in parallel as well, but okay, it makes sense. We want to have equipment useful for the photographer, up to date.
Okay.
So we will do. It's in work, I can say, but time framing is a little bit difficult, but it will be not so far away.
There's a difference between the marketing of that very high power and why Elinchrom doesn't want to do that.
Okay, if we don't do this, is a decision at the end. We could do as the others as well. The big difference is that on maximum power of the unit, nobody could influence a flash really. It's an, how you say, it's an this waveform of transforming the energy to light. If a flash tube is used, then you have this kind of curve. And you can only make it different if you can say, instead, I write on a 1000 watt second, but at the end it's a 2000 inside, and I cut the flash or whatever to make it more faster. But at the end, nobody wants to do this because you put more energy inside, the customer has to pay more, but get less. And so at the end it's like this, that at maximum power, I think we have the most fastest flash equipment. The difference is, the lower the power is, the flash duration in our elder units always go a little bit longer. And the newest units which are set, whereas we have a 20,000th of a second and more, this is never on maximum power. On maximum power, you never have this kind of energy, this kind of flash duration with this kind of energy. But this kind of 20,000th of a second you have at minimum power, But what is a minimum power? You have to check exactly 1 watt, 2 watt. Who will photograph outside or whatever against any ambient light with 1 watt second?
Even in the studio, I can't do it because that would mean like f5.6 on ISO 1600.
Yeah, but look, the speed lights, they have a little bit different technology inside. Okay, this is limited to some watt seconds only, but they can do this in a very, very long time. 6,000, 8,000, 10,000 of a second with a speed light on camera flash. But a professional flash unit always is in another range. It started not at 1 watt, it started normally at 10, 15 watt going up to 6,000 watt seconds or whatever in the past. Now it changed, maximum very often it's only 3,000 watt seconds.
It's a little bit, when I try to explain it to people, and I know a lot of your viewers also have, of course, as a hobby, movies, home theater. I always explain it to people like, if they want to buy a flash system, and they go like, yeah, but Frank, look, Elinchrom is only 5,000 of a second. This one is 20,000 of a second. I always tell people, I think that Elinchrom really meters the real usable output, and they don't do a trick that at the lowest setting you can get 20,000, but if you go up it's only 1/800.
Yeah.
And I compare it to projectors. Like if you have a projector, let's say Epson or Sony, and you look in the box, it has a contrast ratio of 100,000 to 1. Now when I do a contrast ratio meter, it's always 1/15,000 to 1, and that's amazing. I can get it up to 100,000 to 1, but then I have to bump the contrast, high lamp mode, open up the iris completely, and then I do the black metering, I lower the contrast that you really see no detail, and I close the iris. You don't want to look at a projector like that, because if you look at an image like that, you go like, I don't see any white detail, I don't see any black detail, and as soon as you start raising the brightness, that you can see that shadow detail, your contrast ratio will actually drop from 100,000 to 50,000, and then you actually don't see the detail you want, and if you really want to see the detail, you go to 1/15,000. And with strobes, I try to explain it to people the same way. But then they call the manufacturers and it's, no, we really have 20,000 over the whole power range. Now, yesterday you told me something, and I hope you can repeat it, about the simple calculation. You have 1,000 watt going in, so this is your maximum speed. How did you calculate that?
Yeah, it's very simple. So if your unit needs or consumes 1,000 watts, yes, this means the maximum power goes in is 1,000 watt. So the system cannot get the power from outside. So this means that the unit transfers the energy from what comes in to the output. This means if you have 1,000 watt input and you flash, you have a 1,000 watt second unit, this means one flash is 1,000 watt second, or this 1,000 watt second is, then you transfer this energy, this means, but you can flash this only in 1 second, because 1,000 comes in, and 1,000 watt seconds come out. This means this is only possible in 1 second. If you flash now in the same, if you have the same input 1,000 watt second and you flash twice, then the maximum output you could have is 500 watt seconds, because you use it twice in 1 second. So it's like this, and if you go down, 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 and you have 10 frames per second, or you want to make 10 flashes per second with this unit, but it goes only 1,000 watt inside. This means you can flash one time with 1,000, but then you need 1 second to recharge. But if you want to have really 10 flashes in this second, this means you have a tenth of the input power. This means it's only 100 watt seconds.
Yeah, and to be honest, I never found, in fashion photography, I never found any reason to be faster than, let's say, a jump I can freeze with probably a 3,000th of a second. And everything below you will see small movement. So I would rather prefer to have all my strobes constant, and have that like 1/5,000th of a second to freeze motion, then go to a ridiculous amount of speed that I actually don't need, and have some weird form of that strobe is a little bit lower, or that strobe.
Yeah, it's up. But the big discussion was some years ago with the digital photography that it needs very, very constant light. So in the first time with a film, 1/10 or 2/10 of an f-stop was not a big issue. But now with the digital photography, you see it really, the difference if it's 1 or 2/10 of an f-stop in between from image to image. And then all the flash units manufacturer changed this to make it very stabilized and so on. But this technique, in my opinion, goes a little bit away from this. So at the end, the customer, or the photographer, has to decide what is for him the most important thing. Is it really the speed, or is it more the consistency of the flash output, of the light output you have? And yes, this is, I think, the customer, but we try also to to make these different kind of flash durations on different power levels. And for example, with a limited output socket, we put on Quadra or on Ranger, for example. And the other thing is also, if we, for the new technology which will come from Elinchrom, we'll also have much better features than they have at the moment. This is sure, because development goes on and features go on, and we try to do our best. And you have to wait. Be sure you will have a very nice tool.
We can't talk about it yet.
Yes.
Okay, Dieter, thank you so very much.
Very much.
Simon.
Nice
very
to
welcome
meet you.
to the Door is always open. Very
Thank
nice
you.
to meet you. You know me.
I know.
Hey, we're in Switzerland, Elinchrom head offices.
Exactly.
And well, we just had an agent meeting yesterday. It was very successful, I think. I gave a live demo.
It was brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
It was very nice to do. Now, for people who don't know who you are, what is your role within Elinchrom?
So I'm in marketing, and we are part of. We are 3 people who decide a lot about marketing, and I would say this is my role. We take decisions about new products. We don't design them, obviously, but yeah, it's very interesting.
You're responsible for, let me put it this way, for the advertising.
As well.
And of course the support for the agents.
Yes.
And all their marketing, how it works.
Exactly. I'm also in charge of actually answering the customers on the web when we get emails from the support, and the website.
Okay. So now we're in a financial crisis.
Yeah.
Did it change the way you do marketing for Elinchrom? Let's start out when we look like 10 years back or 5 years back.
Yeah.
Because how long have you been working with Elinchrom?
4
years. So let's look 4 years back. There was, of course, a lot more money to spend. How does it change for a big company like Elinchrom? Because some people will think that the big companies will just keep going like they normally do and do advertising. How has the whole process now of the financial crisis affected the way you do marketing?
Well, I'll start with the fact that we get much more requests for sponsoring. You can see that photographers also looking for support. They want to see if they can get free equipment, if they can have some money from us for images. You see that they've come much more in the last 2 years. I would say for us, we've had to work a bit harder, think a bit more, and really think, okay, is this worthwhile doing, or no, we can't do this. It's more really, we have to, how could I say, rethink if it will change anything.
So
Maybe before we could have left the agents do a bit more, but here we see that they also need our help.
Okay, so now let's say somebody wants to be sponsored by Elinchrom, who
Yep.
doesn't, right? And they mail you.
Yeah.
The next day they have like a whole pallet of gear, right?
No, not exactly.
Not?
No.
Oh, okay. So how do you, because you say we get a lot of those requests.
Yes.
How do you handle those? Because I think at one point you would just go like, oh, another request, delete, or do you read them all?
No. We read them all, actually. We always read them. We always investigate the photographer. We see how active he is on social media. We also see his images, because that's also something we have to be careful with, in the sense that if it's maybe too nude, it's not something that we can use in all countries. So we have to be careful what we show and with what we want to be linked.
Yeah, because you're global. So
We're
what works in
international.
Europe, like I can have lingerie images in Europe, and
Saudi
in Arabic
Arabia.
countries it will be.
No chance.
We had to that was so funny. We had our instructional DVDs.
Yeah.
And there was nothing nude on there, you know, the instructional DVDs,
Yeah.
the covers. And it was actually, I believe, the Inside Look 1.
Yeah.
So, and there was a model on there with a blue dress.
Okay.
But she had naked legs. But it was a dress like knee height.
Okay.
And we couldn't send that DVD to any Arabic country. So at one point we just decided, you know what, we take out the cover and send the DVD without cover.
Okay.
And then we even got them sent back, or they just disappeared, because also on the DVD itself it got printed. And that's one point where we started deciding, let's switch to all downloads.
Yeah.
So as a marketing, of course, you have to think about it. Now, when I look at the Elinchrom marketing, it's pretty uniform.
Yes.
Or is that only what I see? Do you really have for each country different?
For us, the thing is, we do a kind of global marketing, and then it's down to the distributor to make his marketing, in the sense that they know maybe more what the Dutch like, maybe the Germans do it differently.
We like stuff for free and cheese.
Yeah, exactly. But for instance, the German magazines, when you look at them, they're not afraid to go nude and everything.
No.
But we can't say, okay, everyone can have nude pictures.
We had to will you allow your Dutch or your German distributor to use nude images in an Elinchrom branded product?
If it's shot with Elinchrom, no problem.
Okay, that's cool. Because a lot of products won't. I know that I had a problem once with a brand I won't name. It's not a flash brand, it's a camera brand. And they wanted to do something with me, and they did something with me, but I couldn't use their logo because there was one picture with nudity. And I said, where did you find a picture with nudity? Because as far as I know, on my website and in my portfolio, there's no nudity. There was actually a slideshow, and it contained like the whole work I did for a whole year.
Okay.
And it was ridiculous. There were like, I think in total there were 4 slideshows. So both were like 10 minutes long, or all were 10 minutes long.
Yeah.
And I think in total there were like 1,200 images in it. It went really fast.
Okay.
And there was only one image that was a body paint.
Yeah.
So I watched, actually I had an intern watch because it was way too much work to watch all the YouTube videos. And she found that one image. I said, it's in a slideshow, really? And I asked them, is that the image?
Yeah.
And I got a reply back, yes. I was like, they do so much investigating. And I think nowadays a lot of photographers think, I will just mail Elinchrom. You have a lot of friends on Facebook. Mm-hmm. Just send me gear.
Yeah.
And I think it's nice to know that how you make that decision.
Yeah. First of all, I think it's important that the agents, they know their business. They know their market. That's why we're not against the nude images. Usually what we do when we receive a request is, so we investigate. There's not only one person looking. We're always the team of 3, 4, 5 maybe looking. And then if we think every work is interesting, but some is just more interesting than the others. And then we will recommend them to our distributors. And then they have to do the link to the photographer.
And does it have to be teachers, or does it have to be people that are famous? It
depends. Again, all freedom is given to the agent. If he's more like, okay, I want to do workshops, then that can be a win-win solution for both. Or maybe, oh God, I want to do my catalog because we do the catalog in English and German, or maybe in Spanish. We don't do it in Spanish. So they maybe want to use other images and do their own catalog, and then they'll work with a photographer just to have images. And then the photographer gets his name outside and they get images. So that's how it goes.
Now, when you start, let's say, with new product lines.
Yep.
And you have to do the marketing for that. Do you always try to get more on the emotional side, the creative side, or the spec side with Elinchrom? What do you think nowadays is more important?
I think we've been weak, in fairness, on the emotion side. I think we've been very often just specs, and people, they can compare specs. They see it with the Chinese, but the Chinese do the same, and we know why they do it. It's similar. We know why the features are similar, but in reality they can be so far. But I would like us to do more with the emotion.
Yeah, I think that's the future also, because when I look at yesterday I had a discussion with one of the agents, and he said, why do you shoot Sony? So I got into the whole discussion, that more dynamic range, that other stuff. And then he said, yeah, but it's, okay, so what mirrorless camera do you use? I said, well, I use the Fuji's.
Yeah.
He said, they're only 16 megapixels. And he's a photographer.
Yeah.
And I looked at him, I said, the 16 megapixels from the Fuji actually beats the 22 megapixels from another camera, because it's an X-trend sensor. And I gave him all the literally stuff that made sense, and he looked at me, it's still 16 megapixels. Somehow it didn't register. And for the people who still shoot analog, think about this. Shoot one, I now own a Leica Air 4.
Yes.
If I shoot 35mm on the Leica Air 4, or I shoot it on, let's say, a Pentax ME, and I scan both images, the Leica Air 4 actually has way more detail.
Yeah.
Because it's a better lens system, it's a better camera, it's the same film roll.
Yeah.
So how is that possible? And I think and especially now I talk with Dieter about the insane numbers, like 20,000 to 1 freezing time. I do a lot of jump photography, and I have enough freezing power. I have like 3,500, 3,000 to 1.
Yeah.
If I have 5,000 to 1, I'm happy.
Exactly.
Because then I know that I can also be a little bit before or after that moment. Now, they actually have that high numbers because they cut the flash or they do other stuff.
Exactly.
And it takes away from the rest. And I think that nowadays people are so focused on that, that if indeed, what you said, we start switching to the emotional side, like, okay, we have this image, it's a beautiful image. If you want to make that image, it was done with Elinchrom. And that's something that actually, and that's the weird part that you say it, because actually one of your advertisements pulled me into Elinchrom because I like the images.
Yeah.
I never look at specs. I always look at which photographer is using it. Is it a professional photographer?
Someone to look
Do I
up.
like his work? That work is amazing. What gear does he use? Okay, it's Elinchrom. Okay, let's see. And then I start investigating the brand. So I never looked at like, okay, we have 6 brands. What is the price? What is the specs that brand I'm going to buy?
I think it depends for a lot of people. Maybe people who are looking just as a hobby, they're going to be much more price sensitive. And of course they're going to look at specs, but they're going to maybe look for bang for the buck.
Yeah. And then you have the D-lights, of course.
Exactly, we have the D-lights for that.
Okay. So we can expect more emotion from Elinchrom in future
Certainly.
campaigns.
Yes.
Do you already pick the photographer?
We have an idea.
You have an idea? We can't tell you yet, guys. But okay. Do you have a finishing thought for the viewers?
Keep shooting.
Keep shooting.
Yeah.
That's the best advice from a marketing man. Do you shoot yourself?
I do.
What camera do you use?
I use a Nikon D700.
How many megapixels?
Oh, I can't remember. I think it's 24, something
24?
like that. Yeah.
Okay. What lenses do you use?
I use I'm hoping to have the 1835 Sigma, the 1.8.
Is that the new art collection?
Yes.
Oh, that's amazing.
I'm waiting for it, but still not arrived.
Okay, cool. And what's your favorite subject to photograph?
I'm a big landscape person, actually.
Okay, so early mornings. That's why you were so early this morning. And nobody was early this morning.
No.
Okay. Thank you, Simon, so very much.
My pleasure.
And
Thank you.
We'll see you around.
Yes.
Hey, Chris. Welcome to the DOORhof is always open. So great that you're here.
Frank, thanks for inviting me.
We're in Switzerland, Elinchrom head offices. And can you tell the people a little bit about yourself? Because you actually run the Flash Center, or you own the Flash Center in the UK.
Yeah.
You have 3 locations, I believe.
We have.
And can you tell a little bit about yourself? How did you get into the business?
Well, I started off being a boss's son. It's a fairly difficult place to be. I mean, I'm still a boss's son, so I mean that's great. Malcolm's involved in the business as well. My daughter and my nephew are also involved in the business, so it really is a family business. And in fact, my half-brother also, Simon, is in Switzerland and doing a great job there. I started off fascinated by chemistry and also economics. Went to university doing chemistry with economics. Discovered after about 6 months there were a lot of postgrad students that couldn't get jobs, and serendipitously had the opportunity, of course, to go into my father's business. In some respects, that's a very uncomfortable place to be.
Yeah, I understand.
But the one thing you know is that you're going to be told how it is. And although there are high expectations, the rewards are phenomenal, because at least you know that ultimately you are in control of where you're going, and if you know how to get there, how you are going to get there.
Yeah. Now, and it seems like I'm attracted to that kind of company somehow. Sometimes you work with a company and it's about money. It's about earning. And they don't think about, I always call it one-dimensional thinking. It's about money coming in, money going out, and there has to be a profit. Now, when I work with companies, Kelby Training, Rogue, Flash Imaging, Flash Benders, and also when I met first you guys at the Flash Center, and now also with Elinchrom, and that's a big company, it's all that family feel. And you also feel yesterday we were at the agent meeting, and even there is that part business, but there's also that part family, that part of being part of something. Is that important for you guys? How do you approach that?
Well, I think it's absolutely critical. I mean, every business needs money to evolve, but I think if you start looking at it from a family perspective, you start applying completely different time frames. And instead of talking about money, you start talking about investment. And instead of just thinking about the financial aspect of investment, you start thinking about the people aspect of investment. And that comes from both directions. It comes from the direction of the people who work with us, including ourselves, of course, the family, but it also comes from the direction of our customers. We have to really, really understand by being told by them what they need, and we also need to understand, which is our skill, how we can convert some of those needs into physical products that can do that job. If somebody was to say to me what our overall ambition was, what the big picture was, it is to help our customers to become as successful as possible. Because if they are very successful, they not only will fulfill their ambition, but they will also be able to afford to do good business with us. And that's what we need. We need good business, all of us.
Now, I think you're the best guy to ask. Before your father, Malcolm, owned the company, it was called differently. It was called, I believe, Elinchrom.
Well, the business was called Elinchrom up till very recently. The name only changed because there was confusion. People didn't know whether whether Elinchrom was a different company from Elinchrom, the brand, and there was no real reason for Elinchrom to be different from the brand Elinchrom. The thing that intrigues me is, and I don't know where it's come from, a lot of people do, particularly in America, refer to Elinchrom as being Elinchrom. You know, go figure.
Different pronunciation. So now, when we look at the UK market, we're in a financial crisis. You guys must feel it also. How do you approach that to your customers? Some people will just put on blindfolds and just go straight ahead. I know you have a vision on that. What's your vision?
Well, you have to broaden if you like, you have a scan of the world. You can walk along, as you say, and look directly at a target in the future, or you can start to spread your gaze far wider. And certainly the applications that are now for lighting have widened substantially. There was a time when nobody could conceive of a world that wasn't silver halide. And if you were using more than 400 ASA, you were really pushing the limits. And if you wanted an enlargement of more than 10 times of any format of film, you were probably going beyond the limits of large and medium format, and maybe could just about get away with it with the best 35mm lenses. Now we live in a world where the shape of the light is everything, the creativity in the mind's eye of the photographer is everything. It's much quicker to work in camera because obviously post-production work is very time consuming. But even somebody who's created a completely flat image can turn it into something of creative merit by retouching, by modifying the image itself. So again, the challenge there is who owns that image. Is it the retoucher? Is it the original photographer? In fact, it's very complicated. For us, we know that most photographers need to work very quickly. And if we can help them to to have the tools to exercise their creativity and create their style quickly and effectively, then we've succeeded. Within the context of that, the parameters have changed completely. In terms of the quantity of light, very often the problem is too much light. Very often, you can very easily boost an image within an underexposed section of a negative, but you can't do anything with an area that's blown up completely. And by the same token, if you want to now work in combination with very, very low levels of ambient light, for example, and you want to use flash, you have to have very low powers.
Yeah, because you can go up to ISO 1600 and then a little bit of flash will just kill the image.
Yeah, you can wind the ISO up, but you can't wind it down.
Yeah. Okay, so now let's look a little bit about yourself. You also shoot, right?
I do.
What's your favorite camera brand?
Canon.
Canon, okay. And if we look at your favorite subject to shoot?
Equestrian or motorsport?
Motorsport, because you race, right?
Yeah, I do.
And you like that?
I do, yeah.
What car?
It challenges me.
What car do you race?
This year I'm driving a Porsche Cayman S in the Porsche Club Championship.
So you're also competing?
Yeah.
And you were high or low?
When I started off, I was right at the back. And I'm getting up towards the middle. I mean, it's interesting. I started off at the back and fairly quickly got to the front of the back group. Now I'm getting up to the back of the middle group. But, you know, it's interesting because it really pushes me. But it also worries me a little bit because for me the cost is so high. So I'm a 58-year-old guy. I'm very ambitious for myself. Driving is my passion. What I learn on the racetrack I bring back to the road. So I really feel that it benefits me. Not in terms of speed, but in everyday driving.
Yeah, I've been in Thomas' car.
Yeah, you look so far ahead. You very rarely use the brakes. You're planning where you're going. And again, it's part of this vision. When you're racing, you can look forwards at where you want to go, but you've got to be very aware of what's either side of you and what's coming up behind you.
It's the same as in business, right?
Exactly right.
That's
and,
the building.
and it broadens the vision. I probably won't race next year because it's so expensive, but I probably will take quite a lot of tuition. And uniquely, I have a racing car that has a passenger seat in it. Now, that's exciting.
That's cool. It's like Thomas's car. We just drove with Thomas yesterday, and that's like racing.
Yeah.
It's like you just close your eyes and you hope that you arrive.
And you arrive. Well,
you do arrive,
yeah,
yes.
Exactly.
And he actually told me, that's an inside joke probably, but the people laugh at this. Yesterday I asked him, did you ever have an accident? And he just replied like, well, only once, but that was not my fault. And I said, why was it not your fault? I said, well, I was driving the wrong way in a one-way street. I said, Thomas, how can it not be your fault? He said, I was overhauled by another car that was also driving. So I was like, okay. So one final question about Elinchrom. What's your favorite modifier?
The deflector set.
And why?
Because you can do so much with it. I mean, it sounds ridiculous. I mean, there's so much good stuff in there. But take the whole of the Rotolux system. It's a rotating softbox system in a variety of shapes, so you can pick up any catch light shape in the eye that you want. It's very quick to assemble. It packs away in a bag, and it's very tidy. Fantastic thing. Okay. You choose which softbox you want. Then the question is, how many different ways can I choose it? And I'll give you an example. 3 people come into a studio. Husband, wife, daughter. Daughter 16, wife 45, husband 50. You know the wife wants to look 21.
Yeah, she wants to have soft light.
Exactly. So you've got full soft light. You know the daughter wants to look 21. If you light her completely softly, you'll make her look like a China doll. You have the choice of taking both the diffusers out of the inside of the Rotolux and simply using your choice of deflector to take out
silver or
part
white
or all of the direct light, which means then the shadow detail is a combination of as much or as little as you want of the direct light from the flash tube, plus then the effect of the reflection from the silver material and all the diffusion. It gives you endless possibilities.
And it's the smallest accessory, I think.
And it's one of the smallest, but it's unique to Elinchrom, and it's part of this. It's part of what makes Elinchrom so Elinchrom. It's the simplicity of being able to see how the system works, being able to see in your mind's eye what it does, and move seamlessly from one look to another. So, for example, the husband, how would you say he would want light?
Hard light.
Well, actually, I'd always ask the wife, because if she chooses,
she will buy the images. Yes. What I always tell people is, if you look at, for example, the 1 meter deep octa, you have 2 diffusers in there. So actually, you can have very soft light, or you can have soft light in the middle and a nice crispy edge. You can take them both out and get real specular highlights. Now start adding the deflector. You have the silver one, you have the gold one. I don't use the gold one only to balance light if I'm shooting in the shade. Or you can use the translucent one, or you can use the white one. Now you can start adding the middle diffuser again, or only the front, or both. When I tell people, like, if they want to buy a softbox, I always tell people go for Elinchrom. And they say, it's a little bit more expensive than the Chinese brands. I said, okay, to have the same effect, if you add the deflector set in there, you have to buy like 6-7 modifiers from the Chinese brand. How much money does that cost? It's less than 1 deep octa, and that's in the beginning why I choose your product. For the very simple reason, I had a budget and I wanted as many different lighting possibilities. And I was looking at all these different styles, and then I found the deflector set, and then the Deep Octa wasn't released yet, but all the other stuff, and I was going like, this is a no-brainer. It's so versatile. And especially when you see all the products that you released over the years, it's all aimed, I think, at what you said, creating as many different possibilities with only one light.
But it gets even better than that, because you did mention that keyword price. Now, if you look at the Portalight softbox that comes in the portable kits, its claim to fame is that it's one of the smallest softboxes. It folds up tiny inside the cases. You can have two softboxes inside the kit bag itself. Now think about the deflector set within the context of that. Because that can either be a fold-up beauty dish, okay, it's square, but that only affects the catch light, still a fold-up beauty dish, or it can be a full-blown softbox, not just with the single outer diffuser, but also with the deflector on the inside. So it's very democratic.
I always say, when people ask me, what's the best tip to get into the Elinchrom system, I always say, when you get the product, don't only look at how it's sold, because I know a lot of people with the small, I still have the Elinchrom version of the small softbox, and people go like, yeah, but that's just a small softbox. I said, yeah, okay, but now take away the from diffuser, and they go like, oh, I never used a softbox like that before. I said, okay, that's step one. Add the deflectors, now add the diffusion again, and they go like, that's a very versatile softbox. And I think that especially with this system, you have to think outside the box, because there are so many possibilities. And I think even photographers will tell you stuff that you didn't know your stuff was being used for, because there's so much. So the final question, somebody shooting Hansel, Profoto, Chinese brands, whatever, why should they change to Elinchrom?
Well, that's a great question, but it has so many different answers. So let me just kind of apply it to me. If I was buying a lighting kit and I had very little money, and I wasn't sure whether I really wanted to explore lighting, or I wasn't sure how much value I'd get out of it, the first thing I would say to myself is, one, what will give me the best opportunity to learn? Two, what will cost me the least? And I honestly believe that if you look at the specification of the D-Light 1 set, the D-Light 1 set gives people the best opportunity to learn because of its feature set, and if they were to choose or discover that lighting wasn't for them, they could sell it for such a high price on the second-hand market, it would actually end up costing them less than the Chinese unit. So they give themselves the best opportunity to learn, and they give themselves the minimum cost. In terms of middle market professionals, Bowens, Hensel and so on, it's all great stuff. But it's the extra things that you can do with Elinchrom that you can't do with those brands that make Elinchrom what it is. I mean, we've talked about the deflector set, we've talked about the rotating softboxes, you could talk about Skyport, you could talk about the fact that the D-Light RX1, 2, 4, BRX 250 and 500, RX, and then of course above it there's coming the new RX system, the LC system. What's notable about that is that they all work in the same way. So the differentiation between those groups, those individual units, is the bigger units will give you more power, the bigger units will work faster, and the bigger units will work harder. So even a top professional has every reason to use a D-Light 1 if they want that low power.
It's the whole range that fits to each other.
Exactly. Then you look at the very top of the range, and let's say Profoto and Bronco are at the top of the range, certainly in terms of their engineering and in terms of their weight and their positioning in the marketplace, they are. There's very little that you can do with those systems that you can't do with Elinchrom. If you look at where those units are, they're very often in rental studios where the rental studios want to rent expensive equipment for two reasons. One, the guy renting it is not paying the bill. Very often it's the client who's paying the bill. So why not rent the best? And secondly, they know they want to rent equipment that is so expensive that the individual photographers themselves are unlikely to buy it. So those brands define themselves, yes, at that top of the market, but there was one key word that I used about Elinchrom, and again, as a family, this to us is very important, is that democratic concept. You have ideas about the photographs that you want to take. If you could only do that with very expensive equipment, What percentage of those great ideas, taking the broad usage of lighting, would never be fulfilled?
I don't know.
You know, if with Elinchrom,
I think you set your own limits. Like when I have gear, I actually always say when I have gear, I always find my limitation and try to solve it. And sometimes it happens, and I always take the Apple iPad as for an example.
Yeah.
I never missed my Apple iPad because I didn't have one. And I didn't know what you could do with it. Then I cut my iPad and now I can't live without it.
Yeah.
And I think with strobes it will be the same thing. If, let's say for example, Elinchrom would release something new with new capabilities, which you would never thought about using.
Exactly.
You will start exploring new stuff.
Because it actually creates
a new genre of photography.
Exactly.
Yes. So I think that's, so to answer your question, I wouldn't know. I never ever hit that brick, but I'm a very adaptive photographer, and I know a lot of photographers aren't. They will just work with something. If it doesn't work, they will throw it in a corner. It's not working.
To us, we want to provide the same tools intrinsically to the guy at the bottom as the guy at the top, because we want that creativity to be a very broad platform. We want to bring on new photographers. We want them to become a part of our family. We'd love them to stay with us. Some of them will feel that they want to start that they've reached a stage where they like to use really expensive gear, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. But that's the one reason why Elinchrom works very hard to control that price aspect of the equipment they manufacture, irrespective of the performance.
Cool. Okay, Chris, thank you so very much for the
pleasure.
interview.